everyone. Welcome to
Georgia Living. Hey, we didn't rehearse that.
No, I was making sure you're awake.
I am definitely awake. Just looking at what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes. My name is Celine Evans.
And I'm Chris. Good to be back.
Yes. And I'm sniffly because there's so much pollen outside, so I'm sorry.
It's a lot.
Oh, wow. I'm on 2 Allegra every day in the morning, and it still doesn't take care of anything.
These trees are in rut right now, I swear.
You're such a hunter.
Oh, it's funny.
They don't move. You know that.
No, they don't. But they certainly get a little wild, and it definitely is messing with my sinuses just as well.
Well, so in Georgia, we haven't had the rain yet. And so whenever this starts, it's invisible. And then it starts becoming yellow. So when we have that rain, you're going to have this river of yellow just gunk on the sidewalks and everywhere. So Be prepared.
Yep. Georgia, if you haven't experienced a spring in Georgia yet, just get ready. On our way in, we ran into Leah, one of our commercial agents, and she reminded me that it is a great time of year. If you're worried about your car, get one of the subscriptions that you can just drive through the car wash as many times as you want, because the moment that you drive through, you know, it'll dry off, it'll look great today, but tomorrow, I mean, you're going to be right back at it.
Yeah, so we are actually back from a really, really long weekend.
Really?
Really long weekend.
I think it was mostly long. It felt longer because of all the confined 5 people in one car for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good bit. But we got a new day trip destination that we're going to talk about today, which is Augusta, which we'll get into a little bit later. We'll kind of talk about what's going on in the family first. We're also going to talk today about what's happening in the commercial real estate sector in Georgia, along with Atlanta's growth prospects. We've got some changes that have happened over the last few years, so we'll touch base, let you know where we are on track. And but as far as the kids go, without getting into too much of what we did in Augusta, honey, what's new around the house with the family?
Other than Augusta? Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, everyone's kind of waiting for spring break, and that's going to be in 2 weeks. I mean, I thought we just came back from another break.
I don't even know when the breaks are anymore. I feel like, you know, we've got a long weekend here and a short weekend there. And, you know, I thought that this week was going to be spring break. I had to go and check the calendar, because usually a lot of the events that we attend they coincide with when a break is.
Yes.
And I was wrong, but we do have a couple of family birthdays coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. Our middle child, our oldest daughter, is turning 9 this year. So we've got one more year towards double digits in the household.
Yes, and actually our youngest daughter also had her first grade music performance last week. And if you think that this is, you know, a Tony award-winning performance,
think again.
It is a first grade performance, right?
It totally is.
It's one that makes parents happy, and she was absolutely adorable.
She was. And,
you know, kudos to the teachers at Shallowford Falls, because they are really great. I mean, the music teacher, she puts a combination of traditional music as well as classical music, so it's not, oh gosh. It's not one genre over another, so it was a nice mix. And these little first graders are so cute. They file in, and then they are all on risers, and for the classical music they have these handkerchiefs, but they're made of almost flexible tulle, so they're wavy, you know, like streamers almost. And they can't sing to classical music because there are no lyrics to it, but they can definitely wave those things around, and boy, do they.
I love, you know, we've got a great school and a great school district, and one thing, because I grew up in Massachusetts, so I didn't have the elementary school experience. I had the middle school experience here, but not elementary. Whenever they do these little events, they cover a lot of different genres, but one that they cover is like country stuff, right? Old Southern folk tunes. And that, the first time I experienced it, I was like, what is this? But it's really hilarious, and the kids love it. So I think this year was like about a frog. It was like an old folk tune.
No, it was about a crawdad.
It was a crawdad, yeah.
It was a crawdad.
And then I think, what was it, the third grade performance a year or two ago was the possum knocking at the door. They made a musical interpretation of a book. So, I mean, the school teaches the kids some pretty cool stuff, but it definitely makes it a lot more entertaining, at least for me, from the parent side, because I'm like, oh, what are we going to get this time? The kids love it. They have so much fun. And then with Scarlett's birthday coming up, I think she wants a picnic. So hopefully the weather will hold. She really wants to just kind of go and do the picnic with the basket this year.
Kids are so fickle. I mean, they want one thing, and then they, see something else on TV, just a little glance.
Ooh, I want this too.
Yeah, like,
add it to the list. No, I do want this, but I also want this, and then I want that.
Yep. She wanted me to surprise her for the birthday, and I said, no, honey, that's your present.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess another thing that is going on around the house, and then we can kind of shift gears and get into actual data that's important to the people that are listening, is we're switching the chores and responsibilities. James is going to turn 12 this year. Yeah. He's been taking care of the chickens, with Scarlett turning 9. We're switching things up a little bit there. And it's gone a lot smoother than I thought it would. In all honesty.
I'd say so.
Yeah. So.
I will tell you one short story. So our youngest, she's a little bit headstrong of all three of them. And she and her sister are like two little bickering puppies. Anyways, one accidentally hurt the other one.
No, that wasn't an accident. One hurt the other one.
Yeah, one hurt the other one.
Yeah.
And so we had to take one puppy and then the other puppy and separate them. So that they can get along, because they just needed space, right? So we told the youngest one to sleep downstairs on the couch.
They share a bedroom.
Yeah, they share a bedroom.
Yeah.
So she was between our very talkative pet bird, and we have a master on Maine, so it wasn't that she was alone at all.
She was right outside our door.
She just needed to be separated from her sister because she was not listening. It backfired on us.
Totally.
Because the next day, she said, "Can I sleep here again?" We're like, "No, that's not the point of sleeping down here." And what was your compromise, Chris?
Oh, so she said she really enjoyed sleeping on the couch. Well, I said, well, take the cushions from the couch up to your bed.
So this morning we woke up to no cushions on the couch, and I don't know if that had any effect on her.
So the punishment worked at first. She was really upset. Like, she really hurt her sister. Like, she whacked her upside the head with a blunt object.
Yeah.
And that object was a guitar, like an acoustic guitar, swung it like a bat, took it to her sister's head. So we definitely got the message across. But yeah, the next morning, it was one of those, like, you keep fighting and you get a second night. And then the next day, she asked, "Can I have the second night?" And I'm like, "Honey, you didn't get that far. Like, this is a punishment. This is your room. You go back to your room."
No, she absolutely loves sleeping on the couch now.
So yeah, now
I don't know what to do.
I don't know. We're just screwed.
Hey, but you know what? There wasn't any screaming or fighting, so.
Yeah. I mean,
it's time to make that
last
second room.
Couple of days have been a lot more amicable between the girls, which is nice. I mean, they're at this age where they're trying to figure out who they are individually, and they share a room, so that's not the easiest thing to do.
Well, I don't think they should share a room anymore because.
Well, we got to sell more homes if we're going to do an addition. So, y'all, if you need a great realtor. Give us a call. You can hit me up at 770-509-0265. That's the Sellect Realty office. Or you can visit us at selectrealty.com with 2 L's because we sell, not spell.
Help us separate our little children.
And or if you're trying to do it yourself, check out simplylist.atlanta.com. Make sure you put Atlanta because we are the original Simply List. There are many copiers, but they actually created it after us. Don't settle for an imitator. Anyway, so shifting gears. Let's talk about what's happening in Georgia. There's a relatively recent article that's out with the AJC. It's within the last 30 days. We've got data that is forecasting the growth for Georgia and nationally as well, with fewer potential interest rate cuts in 2025. So one of the big things here, economic uncertainty is slowing job growth.
Every time I look at Bloomberg, I feel like the forecast for rate cuts is lower and lower and lower. And now it's down to 1 forecasted. The Atlanta Fed forecasts 1.
Yeah. So, I mean, whenever you have uncertainty, that's where you get anxiety, right? The unknown. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how to plan for this. So that's when people kind of step back and wait. So there's a report that came out late in February from the Economic Forecasting Center at Georgia State University saying that Georgia is going to add 50,900 jobs this year. Last year, Georgia added 57,700 jobs. So we're looking at a downward trend. We're still growing, but we have a lot of job uncertainty right now in this market. So there have been layoffs at CNN, closures of 3 Atlanta area Macy's locations, job cuts at the Atlanta-based Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and pullbacks from 2 major electric battery plant projects. One is the Fryer Battery canceled a $2.6 billion plant in Noonan, and Aspen's Aerogels halted a factory near the coast. So we're looking at investment slowing down and not necessarily stopping, but taking a pause. So when we're like in a real estate contract, you don't know what's going to happen. That's where conflict can happen. That's where anxiety happens. That's where unknowns.
It's also where innovation happens too. Like the CNN Center, it's going to become a food hall.
Exactly. So innovation does happen here. But first, you get uncertainty. And with uncertainty, you get some pullback and some change in plans. There are some key sectors that drive the middle class and their spending here in Georgia. One is corporate information, technology, and business-to-business centers. It includes that. The key sectors have lost nearly 9,000 jobs in the last 12 months and more than 31,000 since the start of 2023. In Georgia, one area of expansion is data center construction. We've got a lot of data centers, servers, storage, think Google, think AI, think all of the stuff that we're moving into for this next generation of innovation and growth in American industry. And we're still seeing growth in the TV and film industry. So they're projecting more productions move to the state from Hollywood because of the destruction caused by the fires in LA. So we're probably going to see some more growth there. But other areas...
Those lots are being sold for cash and just the highest bidder already.
Yeah. So other areas of growth here in Georgia include the Savannah area. According to Market Insight Principal John Hunt, citing Hyundai's new electric vehicle manufacturing plant, factory that opened up last year. But an issue on the horizon is that we've got this potential trade war happening with the executive branch of our government, and that could affect tonnage moving through the Savannah port. Right? If we have more tariffs, we have less coming through the ports here in Georgia.
Savannah is our main port, and we don't have much coastline, but from pretty much the beginning of Georgia, that has been our port. And I think that it'll continue to be that important too, because really that supplies us all. In the Southeast too.
Yes. But one thing that we do have here in Atlanta is that the local economy is poised to take advantage of expanded use in automation and logistics through an emerging robotics center or sector. And we're capitalizing on AI. Through a lot of technology startups. If you don't know, Atlanta does have its own little Silicon Valley. It's located in the Norcross Peachtree Corners area along Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. So over there, you've got a Microsoft campus. You have a Google campus, I believe. Mm-hmm. There's lots of investment there. Alpharetta has lots of tech.
Good food. Huh? Good food.
Oh, great food. Absolutely. I mean, Peachtree Industrial, that's right next to H Mart in Doraville. So every time we're over there, we're picking up more ingredients and grabbing lunch. I mean, it's really, really good food. But according to everybody right now, a lot of large firms are gun shy on hiring. So they're pausing to see where the dust settles before they start reinvesting.
Nobody likes uncertainty.
No. And what do companies do when uncertainty happens is they prepare for more uncertainty. So they have a lot of these job cuts that happened 24 and now 25 are happening because of the investment and growth that they did right after COVID in midway 2020 through 2022 to 2023. People were hiring because things were booming, and then inflation hit, and then people stopped. Well, they kept hiring for a little while, and then they stopped, but they didn't lay off.
There are a lot of headlines if they couldn't find help.
Yeah. So a lot of those companies carried the extra employment, waiting to see what's going to happen, because it's much less expensive to keep an employee than it is to go out and find another one, train them, and get them in the role. So they remained overstaffed through 24 and started making cuts in 24 as they started seeing what this next presidency was going to bring, how things are going to happen. They saw how the Fed was handling these rates and whether they were going to reduce fast or if they're going to take a low and slow approach. And this low and slow approach is not it's not a stimulant for investment, right? If you're looking to really stimulate the economy, right? You want to what was that old game, Duke Nukem? You know, you would get the little shot and you would just soup up. The only way that you're doing that is
I don't know what you're talking about.
With low interest rates. There's guys out here listening to this that understand me.
Duke Nukem?
Yeah, it's basically it's a first-person shooter from like the 90s.
90s?
Yeah, it's my childhood. Anyway.
I was not playing this game.
That's okay. I wouldn't expect it of you.
I was playing maybe Super Mario on NES. Duck Hunt?
Yep.
It's Duck Hunt, right?
Yeah,
Is it Duck Hunt?
So no, it's not.
No.
But basically, it's this guy, and he goes around, and there's like a drug, and you can get an injection. It's sci-fi, but you soup up, and you get all these superpowers when that happens. The only way that the economy gets that is with zero federal funds interest rate. So when you drop that Fed rate, that is an injection of stimulus into the economy, because cheap money means people borrow, means people invest, they build, they create, they make things that are going to pay more than the cost of that interest rate. When interest rates went up, that's why we saw a lot of investment in real estate post 2008 and 12 is when those rates dropped, people can invest. Now what happened when rates went up? If you go to buy an investment property today, you have a higher down payment requirement than an owner-occupant, and you also get a higher interest rate. So now those rental properties don't look as appealing because your mortgage is now $2,900 on a $400,000 house, but your rent is only going to be $2,200. So you have to bring more cash to the table in order to get that payment down lower to make the property profitable.
I do have an argument for that, though, still, because our book, From the Ground Up, we bought our first house in a really adverse economy, and it addresses that. But sometimes, you have to hang on to a property for a very long time until we rebound.
Exactly. Yeah, when we played our game of leapfrog, or hermit crabbing, so we went from one house to the other, but we never sold one. We had to live in the first house for 4 years. And
longer than that.
No, we were there from 08 to 12. But when it's close enough. But when we rented it, it wasn't cash flowing. Like, we were paying money every month to get to offset the difference between what the tenant was giving us and what the cost of the mortgage was.
I think a lot of people are going to find themselves in that situation right now.
They might. You start getting yourself into a position where financially you have to figure out, I may not make money, but how do I mitigate the loss and lose less money?
It depends on your long-term goals. You know, our goal was to keep it and to have it as income later on. So that made sense to us. It wasn't that far off. And so we carried it. Just because, you have to pay a little bit of money, like, that doesn't mean that it's a lost cause. So take a look at our book, read what we did, and discuss it.
From the ground up. It's available on Amazon and Audible, so right here. And figure out what your game plan is, because if you don't know what your plan is, how do you know if you're taking the right actions? So generally, Atlanta posed still growing. We still have some sectors of growth. We have some challenges, but in this economy, who doesn't? There's a lot of unknowns. Everybody's going to have their issues.
People can't find eggs.
Yeah,
right? Limit 2 cartons, and then everything else it was toilet paper. Now it's eggs.
Ran some over to our neighbors the other day. They were very excited.
I know. Sometimes, other years past, they're just like, thanks. This year they're like, thank you.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and funny enough, the surcharge on eggs right here in this article as I continue to read on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So here it is. I hope everyone notices there are eggs on your plate. So the bank is doing well, Synovus president and CEO Kevin Blair equipped. So just talking about that, I think it's pretty funny.
Eggs are important. Think about our economy, right?
Yes.
Waffle House. We have Waffle House in Georgia. And you said that the All-Star breakfast used to be what?
It used to be about $7, and now it's approaching $12.
But Waffle House is really good. I love Waffle House.
Waffle House is amazing. I just, the best time to go to Waffle House is like 2 a.m. though, so I haven't been there in 10 years because of the kids.
The pecan waffles are
so good. And, a lot of this all tracks consumer confidence, and those numbers are actually supposed to come out today. Today, I think it's Tuesday, March 25th.
Okay.
And I believe Bloomberg said that we're supposed to get some new consumer confidence numbers out today.
Isn't that usually at 8:30?
I think this one's an afternoon announcement because I just checked and I don't see any updates of new headlines on the main page.
Yeah, then it's a later announcement.
Yeah. So, we're looking here. The AJC predicting that the mortgage rates are not going to go down below, get down to 5% for some time now. We're starting to see that this is the rhetoric. This is our normal. So as far as real estate and planning goes, don't shop rates. Don't wait for the market to bubble and tank, because it's probably not going to. But what sound financial advice here is that if you are planning to buy a house or you're a first-time home buyer, look at the payment. Whatever the rate is, look at what that payment's going to be every month. If you're comfortable making that payment, buy the house, because we're still growing. Atlanta is still an attractive place, and we're still going to watch prices continue to rise over the long term.
This is why you hate the saying, marry the house, date the rate.
I can't stand that. I have chastised agents for saying that, because it implies to the public that rates are going to come down, and it's a guarantee. And they have slightly, right? We're off of the high of over 8%. We're down to the low 6s. But you never make a purchase for something this large without it being comfortable. You want that payment to be, like, if rates drop, that's an added bonus to you.
So you're saying don't make a large commitment without knowing where you're going in the future.
Exactly.
Just like marriage.
I think it's and also now more than ever, I think it's important to pay attention to the timeline. If you are planning to live in a home less than 5 years, you really shouldn't be considering buying at this point, mostly because, through the last decade, we had an extreme run up. You hang out in a house for 3 years, you're basically going to be able to break even. We're back to a more traditional long-term rate of growth, which is a little bit slower and more consistent. So there's less volatility. It's going to be at a slower pace, and we're not going to have as fast of price appreciation here. So just make sure you're paying attention to that timeline, because you've got to be able to appreciate enough to cover all of your expenses in selling and get your equity back out of the deal, and hopefully make a little bit more at the process.
We do have some clients that really just don't have a choice, though, because they are relocated or they have a death in the family.
Yeah, and we've lucked out. We have one under contract. We're pending out of all due diligence. That one, he's going to break even. So he's only owned it for like 18 months. So it's a really good break even.
That's the good really scenario, because of all this. Really, everything's been stagnant, right? Sure yes, rate has come down, but also the home prices haven't really come down that much either. So it's kind of this balancing act. And for people who have owned only 18 months and they have to leave because of jobs or whatever family commitments, that's actually a good result.
Yeah.
This whole equity, wasn't it something like 18% increase during COVID, or how much did it increase?
Oh, I think from like 2017 to 2023 or 2024, I think the average run up in real estate valuations was close to 47%.
Okay. Which means that you made a lot of money in equity.
Yes.
The value of that home really increased from where you bought it. And there was a chart that we saw a very long time ago, and it had easy to read data on it about the years where it was positive growth like that in the price and then negative growth. And all of that was really, really eye-opening to read, especially for you.
Yeah, if you track the nationwide housing data and averages and price points, I think there's only been 8 years. Before 2020, there were only 8 years where housing growth in the U.S. was either zero or negative. 1 year it was zero. I think that was 90 or 91. The other year, 90 or 91, was like negative 1%. And then the other 5 years happened, it was 7 years total. The other 5 years happened 2008 to 2012.
What about the Great Depression?
They weren't tracking back then. It only goes back 80 years to right around World War II.
Fair.
Is when the government started tracking this data. So,
and that's when the first housing boom came along, because all the soldiers came home, and then the GI,
Yep.
They have the VA loan.
Cookie
to get
cutters,
homes.
white picket fence, 3.5 with a grill in the back.
Yes, there you go.
So there's uncertainty happening. We're still forecast to growth. Atlanta has some opportunities that other parts of the country don't because of our film industry. And we're going to just sit back and watch and see how this unfolds.
So what about the commercial space?
So commercial is struggling right now in the retail sector.
So examples of these are not just the high rise, but we're talking about anything 4 units or above in residential, because once you go above 4 units, it's called commercial, right?
Well, it's commercial loans, yes. But it's not necessarily a commercial property.
But it's categorized in that because of the financing for it.
Yep. But the struggle in commercial right now is not necessarily in that sector. In commercial real estate, there's lots of sectors, right? You have healthcare, medical office buildings, right? MOBs. You have Class A, which are your downtown high rises. You have your office space, your Class B, which is kind of like what we are in a suburban office park. Then you have warehouse and industrial. Those flying off the shelves. You can't find enough of them.
Auto
shops.
Because they have specific EPA requirements.
Yep. And the demand for automotive will be become higher and higher because with challenging economy, people will keep things and repair them. Then you get into convenience stores, gas stations, C-stores. Those, huge demand because we're a travel-based economy and we're only growing and more cars.
I know, we used to have streetcars everywhere. Oh my God.
And the last sector I want to talk about here today is like your retail, because retail is really struggling. Think about it. We lost Joann.
Center.
Yep, Town Center.
Yeah.
Mall. Couldn't pay their power bill, right?
That was unimaginable if you told me that in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
I said, what do you mean? Everyone's there on the weekend. I mean, they make plenty of money.
It's ridiculous it's unthinkable for my teenage self. But then we have the closing of Joann Fabric and several other large anchor center retailers. So when you have a giant strip mall and one large tenant like a Joann Fabric or like
Publix,
a Best Buy, any of those one stores that brings people, and then you have a lot of smaller stores around there, the anchor tenants are going out of business. So we've lost Joann. There's two others that we've lost. I'm not bringing to mind. I don't have these notes right in front of me. But these areas are going to struggle. Data centers, we're not having issues with, but the retail is going to go through a redevelopment of such. They're going to have to figure out what do we do with all this square footage that's still going to attract people to these other tenants here. So I don't know. Maybe we're going to see some of them turned into self-storage facilities. Maybe we're going to see some
Office?
Maybe.
Space?
But, so the challenge with this, and it's fascinating because if you listen to some experts on redevelopment, these spaces are not built in a way that's conducive to office or living because of the lack of light. You don't have light in these places. There's no windows or natural lighting. Lack of airflow, plumbing capacity, the ability to fit a lot of people in offices and restrooms and things. It doesn't exist.
Right, because when you go there, you're there to shop, not to use the restroom.
Exactly. So you've got like one small section of restrooms for 20,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't match. So it becomes this giant project of completely redeveloping the infrastructure around it, which is a challenge. And we're going to be facing that. We're seeing
challenge. The footprint of Town Center Mall itself is enormous.
I would imagine that. So when we see malls being redeveloped, they get repurposed into multiple parts. So some of that may get demolished and then raised and put like housing. Right? You look at Perimeter Mall.
I could see education going in there.
Education could. I would love to see Kennesaw State come in and take over that campus.
They've taken over a lot. I mean, they've grown immensely since the 80s.
Yeah.
They used to be a little blip. And, I'm going to sneeze again.
I think there were like 18,000 students enrolled when I went there in 2005.
Yeah.
And it had grown immensely at that point.
And they've bought out, I think.
And now it's over 30,000.
What was that electronics store?
Brandsmart.
Yeah, they bought out that building. So they kind of hug the highway, and you can see them, and you can go through that campus kind of
you sure
on
can.
the highway. Yeah.
So there's quite a bit happening. We have our challenges, but we also have our opportunities, and that's what we have to look at in any environment. So Atlanta, we've got I think we're kind of all in this together. We're going to look for the opportunities. We're going to try and make our city and our metro area the best that it can be. And hopefully our great entrepreneurial community is going to come together and create lots of jobs and find new ways to shape how this space needs to be used.
Think about it. So if you go to Rome, what do you see? Right? You see a lot of buildings that had to have been repurposed that were the size of Town Center Mall, and now they're tourist attractions. So maybe in 2,000 years, our mall, if one remains, is going to be a tourist attraction.
Can you imagine?
They go, people used to gather here and spend the entire day here eating pretzels and cookies and shopping for soap
Oh,
Right?
now I'm craving an Auntie Anne's pretzel. Yeah, and that's so funny.
Yeah.
All right,
We're going to be relics.
you know what? I'm happy to be a relic. I'm good with it. I'm not ashamed of my time in a mall when I was a kid. I hung out there every weekend. We brought the cars there every Friday in high school. We would get together. And
You're so old, they demolished your Sparkles and have buildings on top of them now.
Did they?
Oh, no, that was Cowboys.
Yeah, that was Cowboys.
Cowboys.
No, yeah. We used to have a club
Bear
here
Parkway?
in Kennesaw. It was close to Bear Parkway, right off of 41 and the little cut through with McCullum.
It's close to Sparkles. No?
South of the Sparkles on 41.
Oh, okay.
But it used to have a teens night. So we had a club where, every other night of the week they're serving alcohol and drinking and debauchery's happening. And like on Thursdays, it would be teen night or kid night. So you could go in there and, pretend to be an adult and party. And it was...
Do people even have teen clubs anymore?
I don't know. I mean...
It seems like such a liability.
This was also the time that, Panama City Beach was Redneck Riviera. It hadn't
MTV
become
had
like
their spring breaks,
the 30A that, all of the preppy people want to go to. And back then, there used to be this club there too, and they would have foam parties, and it was a teen club in Panama City. It doesn't exist anymore, but it had massive parties. So we don't see that.
There was actually a teen club. It only lasted for maybe a year or so, or two, and it was right across the street from Sprayberry High School. And I could tell you all about that shopping center. But it was a brand new building, and it was a teen nightclub.
That's funny.
Fun fact, I'm regressing, but fun fact, the LA Fitness that's there right now used to be a Kroger. And at the time in the 90s, it was one of the most technologically advanced Krogers out there. This is before any smartphone, before any, what's that pocket notebook thing that we had before Blackberries?
Palm Pilots?
Palm Pilots.
Yeah.
Before that age. So think about what technology we had and didn't have. They would have screens on each shopping cart, and then you can locate the items in each aisle, and it could do other things too. It was so popular to where people would come in just to use one of those buggies, and we even filmed it for one of the Japanese TV shows.
That's funny.
Because it was just so outstanding, and it was just a gimmick,
Going back, that just reminded me of even before that, they used to have the charts, like on the inside of the cart, there would be the advertisement, and they would have like a chart, and it would show like what item is in what aisle.
Oh.
Like the cheat sheets. But it was Club La Vila in Panama City Beach, and there were like a lot of lawsuits and things that happened around it back in the early 2000s.
See? Liabilities.
Yeah. The reports had the club closing after the 2005 spring break rush, but apparently it remained open, and it closed officially in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah. But
long?
they got rid of the kids aspect of it. Like kids weren't allowed. They got rid of the smoking indoors and kind of all that stuff. And
see, we were at the very tail end of the latchkey kids, weren't we?
We really were. There was still a little bit of that
freedom
that was given to us, with my kids are going to probably listen to this, so I'm not going to say anything further about that. Just that Club La Vila doesn't exist anymore.
Nope.
And that kind of leads us into when we're talking about great day trips to take. We just got back from Augusta, Georgia.
Yes.
Celine, why don't you tell what were we even doing there?
All right, so it depends on when you leave, but if you leave from a suburb of Atlanta and you have to go through the traffic, it might take you a little bit more than 3 hours. But if there is no traffic on a Sunday, it's about 3 hours from the metro to Augusta. And Augusta is a city that is very, very old city in Georgia. It's almost as old. I think it is as old as Savannah. Maybe Savannah probably beats it because of Oglethorpe there.
Also, DeSoto. So DeSoto came up,
right.
and he came up north from Florida, and he explored into the Augusta area.
Okay, so there's that too. So it's an old city. We don't have history like in Boston, not like that, but we do have some, and this is where you find some. So we had never been to Augusta. I was born and raised here, and I've never been to Augusta. Just never had a reason. Whenever we would go by there, we would just be passing through to somewhere else, like a conference and at the Capitol in DC, or just we had other plans. And so we said, okay, well, we have a conference there that's over the weekend. Why don't we take the kids? And it was an Airbnb that was dog friendly, so we took Dumb Dog as well.
Yep, Archer came with us.
The bird stayed at home, but yeah, he was just fine. He's a teenager. He's 19. He's legal. He could stay at home and take care of himself. He was fine.
He also had enough food to last him an entire week.
We also watch him through a video camera as well, and my parents are right there if he needs something. So he's fine. He's fine.
Yes, he is.
He did talk to us through the camera. But so Augusta has some really interesting things. There's outdoor stuff, there's cultural stuff, there's food stuff, and their annual event stuff. So most notably, I think in popular culture, you would know Augusta for a tournament, and that would be the Masters.
Yeah.
Yes, the Masters is in Augusta. If you go there thinking that maybe I'll just stop by, is it
Augusta
National, that's what
Augusta
it's called.
National,
you're going to stop by Augusta National and take some pictures, selfies, and then, post them, hey, I went there. No, don't think about it. It is surrounded by this giant fence, lots of bamboo that line the streets. Maybe you can see a little glimpse of the inside through the gates, but that's all that you're going to see because it is so prestigious, so pristine, that I've actually seen some aerial photos of it, like Google Maps. All the grass and dirt around Augusta National is all brown and everything. And then you look at Augusta National and it looks like the middle of summer. They keep everything so great. But Augusta National, I don't know the history of it. I'm sure you can look it up if you're a golf expert.
I've got some golf history here. And
you do?
I've got some Augusta history.
I'm not a golf player, so...
And we're going to talk about what makes Augusta a great day trip and things to do there. So first off, yes, if you're a golf fan, the Masters. I have never been. It is a bucket list item. There might be an opportunity this year. We'll see. But
it's like our Kentucky Derby.
Let's back up a little bit and talk just about Augusta, because you mentioned that we don't have a lot of historic places in Georgia because of Sherman. Augusta was settled in 1735.
That's awesome.
Yeah. 2 years after Oglethorpe founded Savannah. So they're
right.
like sister cities.
I was right. Yeah.
And there was a fort there that was set up for defense against the Spanish or French, and it was named in honor of Princess Augusta, who was the mother of King George III. So Augusta
I didn't know that.
Is the third largest city in the state of Georgia. It has a population of just over 200,000 as of the last census. And it is, there's a lot of history there. So, as you mentioned, we stayed downtown.
In a historic home.
Yeah, the home itself. Oh, I wonder if I have the image of...
It was off of Green Street, and
where's that?
It was built in 1840. It's this beautiful, beautiful home that has been renovated, and there's a little bit of history there.
Yep. We stayed in the Stovall Barnes house. So this building was built for Bowling Anthony Stovall, who was a local cotton broker. And he was the father of Pleasant Stovall, who played baseball with Woodrow Wilson, who later became president. Now, Pleasant Stovall eventually became a newspaper publisher and ambassador to Switzerland during World War I. The house was built in 1860. In 1873,
1840.
It says 1860.
Oh.
It sold to George Barnes, who was a district congressman when the Stovall family moved to Athens. Now, in the 20th century, it became a residential hotel and boarding home. And in 2009, it was they had a certified rehabilitation by the great-great-grandson of Barnes, Tom Robertson, and his partners, Tennant Houston and Paul King. In 2010, Paul King was awarded the Georgia Downtown Award for Design, and the Stovall Barnes house was purchased by a development and turned into short-term rentals.
Where we stayed.
And this is right where we stayed. We were upstairs. It was such a cool house. 10-foot ceilings. Each room has its own. They're painted now, but they had the transoms over every door.
The fireplaces in each room.
The fireplaces were, stunningly beautiful. Lots of great architecture that we got to enjoy. Plus, it was you're downtown already. We're 2 blocks over to the main restaurants, and we're right off of the main entrance, so we could just get out, turn left, and boom, on our way to the highway.
Secure parking as well.
Yeah, it was gated, had a whole courtyard in the back with outdoor fireplace. So huge shout out to the owner at this property. They had a great Airbnb. But while we were down there, so we were there for the Daughters of the American Revolution State Conference, where you were in attendance and you had to deliver a report.
Yes,
and
for my committee.
I had all the kids. So we got down Friday night. We walked around. We got to see the James Brown statue. And
yes.
I had no idea that how many people called Augusta home. And James Brown being one of them. So I guess around the age of
Godfather of Soul.
Godfather of Soul, yeah. So we saw his statue. The kids had never heard of him. They know a couple of his songs, but had no idea anything about him. So they're like, "Who is this guy?" And they were a little weirded out by his statue because he's kind of a short dude. I don't know if that's a lifelike statue, but if he is, he's a pretty short dude.
I think it is,
I don't know.
actually. I think it is. My mother met him one time. She was a stewardess for Eastern Airlines. This is back when the airline, the planes
stewardess.
They were called stewardess, not flight attendants, and the airplanes themselves were like Airstreams almost.
Yeah, they were the
shiny metal on the outside, if you can think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not painted or anything like FedEx or Delta or anything like. They're all white now.
Like the dual prop.
Yeah.
Quad prop planes, yeah.
Yeah. It looks like, the predecessor to, what is it, Lindbergh?
It's what Indiana Jones would have got on to go and fly off into some adventure, right?
Yes, with the propellers.
Exactly.
But she said, she met him, and I really think it was the statue.
I think the statue freaked her out.
Statue was not.
No, because, she didn't have any problem with the stuff at the
is short,
museum.
so she was looking at it from a bottom angle, so it probably was weirder than it was from my angle, so.
Probably.
Who knows?
In the photo, she's hiding behind her brother. So we got to check James Brown Boulevard. We got to walk the dog. Great downtown scene.
Riverwalk.
Yep. So before we get to Riverwalk, there was some restaurants that we checked out.
Yes.
Right there on Friday night, there was what was that nacho place?
Nacho Mamas. And there's actually Mama in there. Did you know that? There's a woman that wears a sweatshirt with Mama in big letters. Yes.
Oh, that's so South. I love it.
And then whenever you check out, they're like honey or sweetie or something like that. Love, I don't know.
That's
love.
Perfectly Southern. I absolutely adore that.
Yes.
I didn't get to go in and check it out because I was outside with Dummy, the dog, while you were ordering and getting something for us to take back.
You were making friends with Leaf.
I was. I met some locals who had been all over the state. We were chatting. I met another dog owner. Archer made some friends.
They love GSPs.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so many comments about pointers down there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pointer owners, I guess, or at least fans of them. So that was Friday. We got in, checked out downtown, went for a little walk, ended up having to buy a new toothbrush. gas station was surrounded by a bunch of homeless people. You had a great interaction while I was inside with that, so that was fun.
So
nice people.
But the downtown area, I've got to say, is going through a revitalization.
Oh yeah,
right
they're
now.
doing a lot of work.
We went to a museum that I'm sure we're going to talk about, and it is the Augusta History Museum. We got to see some photos of 1950s downtown Augusta, and a lot of these buildings have that traditional window shopping architecture to where the door is recessed and then you can see both left and right side of the showcases that are there for the goods. And think about like Woolworth department store, that kind of small town feel, not these big anchor box chain stores that you're talking about nowadays. A lot of those, I think, with that turn, they did go out of business, unfortunately, the mom and pop shops, and there are less and less of them. A lot of the chain stuff is just, my mom calls it generica.
I love that term.
You've never heard her say it?
I have never heard your mother say that. I love it. It
really summarizes these places. So before it became generica, it was the mom and pop shops. So you've got your ice cream shops, kind of like Marietta Square is right now.
Yeah, where things are owned independently by a family and not by a national chain.
Yes. And then you got your local banks, and a lot of the buildings were built in like the late 1800s. I could look up and it says 1888, or you get the idea of the type of architecture there. But there are also some very large parcels there that have busted out windows. You can see all the way through, and that's the truth of it. We're not just going to talk about the pretty parts of Augusta. There are some economic opportunities there for revitalization. A lot of places go through these things. Roswell, for example, it is bustling right now. But 20 years ago, you didn't have much on Canton Street. It's unimaginable now, but just in a few short decades, it has come a long way.
Marietta Square has undergone a lot as well. The square itself has always had some great shops, but the surrounding area, all those old bungalows were just decrepit and falling apart, and we're seeing a lot of reinvestment in those and our community. So we love seeing that. Augusta has a lot to offer. The food that we ate was awesome. So Saturday morning you had your conference. So we drove you down to the hotel, which was a 2-minute drive, which was great. We parked a little bit closer to the Riverwalk, and the kids and I went and explored the Riverwalk on Saturday morning. And the Riverwalk, funny enough, it's part of the Bartram Trail.
Really?
Yeah, there was a sign there that said that we were on the Bartram Trail, which is a hiker's trail through the state of Georgia. It generally goes west to east, where the Appalachian Trail goes north to south. So I got to point that out to the kids. We went for a beautiful walk along the river. We came across the farmers market in downtown Augusta, which was huge and had some great vendors, lots of dogs. The kids loved it. They got these lemonades that were made right in front of them. They were like different flavors lemonades. One was a fruit punch, the other one was strawberry, and they mixed like fresh fruit up in these like to-go containers. They're like the 1 pint to-go containers.
It's like a soup container. But
it really was. And they punched the hole in the top right in front of you for the straw, and the kids are walking around with these cups that are as big as their face.
Well, compared to their size, right?
I know. And then, when two of them finished their drinks before we even left the farmer's market, I'm immediately thinking, oh no, we're out walking. I'm going to need a restroom.
Yeah, always with
kids. We got... You
didn't think of that before you got them giant lemonades?
I didn't realize the size until I ordered 3.
I wasn't there.
No. Well, the kids loved it. We got there was a food truck. We got some banh mi sandwiches for lunch. Then continued down the Riverwalk until we found the playground at the water, which is down by the marina. Unfortunately, their hearts were broken because it still hasn't been repaired. There was a big hurricane that went through last year.
Hurricane Helene.
Helene went through. It did a ton of damage to Augusta. They are still recovering. There's still some buildings that are blue tarped, and there's still some debris. The city is going through and removing some trees from the downtown area that were damaged. But for the most part, you can get around, right? They've recovered about, I'd say, 90%. But the tree debris was still there, so we didn't play on that playground. We kept walking. We found another one by a church over there. They got to play around a little bit. Then we headed over to the Augusta Museum.
Well, before you do that, now that river walk is right next to the Savannah River.
Yes.
And Savannah River is the border between South Carolina and Georgia. So if you wanted to, I don't know if you would, swim across from Georgia to South Carolina, you could, or you can take the bridge.
Or you can kayak, or you can boat. We got to see there is a railway drawbridge over there, and James got to ask all about it because he wanted to see it up close and personal. Like, we got up to the stairs right next to it, and he was like taking pictures with his phone.
Oh, anything mechanical.
Oh, yeah.
He loves that.
And he was like, I got to see the rails. Is it still in use? And he was like, they're shiny. Yes, they are. So funny enough, the railway in Augusta is the oldest in the state of Georgia and it has been in continuous use. So there's a marker, and it's something like 1832 it was chartered, and 1837 the first train in Georgia was running along that route. So
cotton was king back then, and this is one of the not the main reason, but one of the big reasons for
it was the industry. Yeah.
It was part of their industry because the cotton would be coming from all over Georgia, and then the path between Savannah, the port, and Augusta was very well traveled, and that's even why they had an Augusta Canal, which you can still see. Google it on Google Maps satellite. You'll be able to see the canal. Sometimes it peeks through, sometimes you'll have to try to follow it because it has been quite a while since it was used. But you'll be able to see the remnants of it, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah, and that canal used to, the current that would flow through that canal would power all of these giant industrial workshops that would process things. They would process cotton, they would manufacture textiles, they would do all sorts of stuff.
You can do a paper mill?
Yeah. So, and we got to learn about that because, the kids got done on the playground and they needed the restroom because they had those giant lemonades. So I go into the app and I'm like, well, there's a porta potty over there. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I go into the app, open up my maps, and I'm like, public restroom. Boom. It sends me to the museum. Cool. So we go over to the museum. Can't have food and drink in there, so I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're
darn
not.
Lemonades.
I guess we're not going to do the museum today. I asked the guy, can we use the restroom? I got information about ticketing. He's probably like, tourist. Well,
never coming back.
They let us use the restroom. Girls were happy about that. We went back to the house. As soon as we got there, you ended up finishing, so I had to turn right back around and come get you. But then we were able to go back to the museum later in the afternoon.
I'm glad.
And if you're in Augusta, I highly encourage you to go to this museum because it's substantial.
The Augusta Museum of History.
A lot of local museums are not that substantial. You go in and you're like, okay, 5 minutes and I'm done. Not this place. Like 2 wings downstairs and 2 wings, like 4 wings upstairs. It was a lot to cover. So it very inexpensive. I think it was $5 per adult and $3 per kid. Anybody under the age of 6 is free. So we're not there anymore, but still didn't break the bank. We got.
It's also an event place.
Yeah, they have events there.
Yeah.
But we spent a good 2 hours going through, and they have like the history of Augusta going all the way back to prehistoric times. Didn't know this, but mastodons used to be hunted in the area. Same thing with giant ground sloths.
I don't think I'd ever want to come across one of those.
No, fortunately,
giant ground sloth.
I don't think we have to worry about that. But then it goes into, it covers the history as settling happened, as the interaction with the local tribes in early Native American period. Then it goes through like the settling and the Civil War. There's a giant boat like riverboat in the middle of the museum that you can see would have been on these either the canal or the river at those times to ferry people and goods up and down.
It's very Mark Twainish.
Very, very Mark Twainish.
Sawyer, you know?
Yeah, early.
Think about steamboats and like the big wheel that goes, you know.
It was great to learn about that because they actually teach you how the steamboat improved the efficiency of everything that they were doing there at the time. And along the Riverwalk, there is a giant steamboat paddle that's installed. Somebody donated it, and it's just there as a piece of art at this point. So museum's great. Upstairs, so the downstairs is going to cover a lot of early Americana period of Augusta, the history of Augusta and the land. Then it gets into technology and rail. So there's a restored train there and Pullman sleeper car
it's
in there.
Georgia that's there. Yeah.
And so that's there. There's early fire trucks, and it's just the kids loved it. You get to go into the train. There's a trolley there. We got a great picture of the kids goofing off in the windows. You can get on and take pictures. So there's some interactive stuff, which makes it great if you have kids who are just ADHD like mine and they're bored out of their minds if they're not engaging with something, then it's a great place. Upstairs, they had more history about what was up there. So there was military. So there was a display about the USS Augusta, which is a battleship. It was a flagship in World War II. So the history of that there, some of the silver.
From Eisenhower and Mamie Eisenhower.
And then after some of that, it gets into a whole wing on James Brown. So if you're a soul, if you love soul, like, you get to see all, like, they have a lot of his belongings, his awards, some of his famous costumes are there. It really felt like Graceland for Soul. It
was almost like notable people from Augusta area.
Yeah.
And then it went into
golf.
No, before that, it made me feel very old because they are a comprehensive history museum. So yes, they did start with the ground sloths, but they also included the Breakfast Club and an iPhone.
Outcast was in there. There was an Outcast poster. There was a Motorola StarTAC phone there.
A viewfinder. They had
the first iMac, with the blue see-through.
You know, I used one of those at UGA. They still had them.
I know. I used them too. I learned how to do Photoshop on one of those. So good job,
Augusta, like the Museum of History. You have thoroughly covered history of humankind from sloths to iPhones. Thank you.
But then upstairs, there are sections of notable. There's a section on notable famous people from Augusta. There's a section, and then there's two sections on golf. There's like the history of golf.
They're much smaller.
And then there's if you take the two of them together, there's some good golf stuff there. They have carts, the history of golf in Augusta. So Augusta National was founded by Bobby Jones, designed the course, and it became like the premier club. So highly encourage you to check that out. And then now we were there for the DAR conference, and there was something special about this DAR conference that was of historical significance. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Marquis de Lafayette had a lot to do with the American Revolution and aiding the U.S. in their independence. And so he decided that he was going to have a farewell tour later on in his life. So he came back to America and went from the Northeast all the way down and toured quite a few places in Georgia. So the Friends of Lafayette, they are their own society. It's the 200th anniversary of this, and that makes sense because we are coming to our semi-quincentennial celebration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of our nation. So 50 years or so in between that, right? So, he was much younger when he was here during the Revolution. Now he's older and kind of, reminiscing on things. So for this 200-year celebration, they went from place to place reenacting with a reenactor and even military escort for him. To
French military escort.
French, yes.
Representative of the French military.
It was so cool.
It was cool.
And so the exact path that he took, and on the exact same day, 200 years ago. So we had planned our conference to coincide when he was in Augusta, because that was actually one of the places that he was. And on Sunday morning, right after the conference, they all gathered by the river where he was, and these are all actually, well documented, so they knew he was right there. Other groups were there as well. The mayor spoke apparently, and it was a great to-do of that. And I gotta say, the reenactor was great.
He was awesome.
Genuine, knew a lot of information. He was not called the Marquis de Lafayette when he was here. That was a later title in his life. But just, having that and learning about the history of all of it was fantastic. And actually, seeing people who care that much about what happened. And so, should I talk about Meadow Garden?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Meadow Garden is the home of George Walton. He is one of the 3 signers of Declaration of Independence from Georgia, and we are the farthest away.
So if you live in East Cobb or anywhere near it with us, Walton High School,
yes,
named after George Walton,
yes.
Same guy.
Yes, George Walton High School. And that's why they're called the Raiders, and they have the red, white, and blue colors. Yeah, people are making that connection now.
There we go.
So George Walton, he wasn't born in Georgia. He was born in Virginia, 1749, I believe, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah.
And so he eventually moved to Augusta later on in his life and built a home for himself and his wife and small family. He had a son and a daughter, I believe. The son died early, but the daughter did survive and married and had her own 2 children. But this was a small home that faced the Augusta Canal. Now, the Augusta Canal is not in use anymore, so that kind of shifted things. So the entrance is not facing the canal anymore. But when you drive up, it's this beautifully kept home purchased by the Daughters of the American Revolution. There are docents there that can take you on tours, and there's a very small gift shop as well.
Yeah, they're open Monday through Friday, 10 to 4.
Oh, great. Thank you. And then
Saturday by appointment for groups.
Do you remember the website?
It was historicmeadowgarden.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's called Meadow Garden, and I'm not so sure who put that name there. Maybe he made that name. But it stuck, and it's this really, really great location. And you wouldn't even expect it either, because it's in the middle of
It's a Piedmont healthcare campus.
Healthcare campus,
yeah.
Almost, between the canal and then the healthcare campus.
And then there's another building for Piedmont on the other side of the canal. So it's this big healthcare campus. There's lots of buildings around there, and it's just right there.
But the house was there before Piedmont. So if you think about it that way, just like Savannah has these blocks and everything, Augusta was also planned that way. Mm-hmm. If you look at the old maps at the Museum of History. So over time, commercial has kind of come in, redeveloped that area. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of change. So it does make sense that it's in the middle of an office park. It's just, you wouldn't expect it because of your surroundings.
And back then it would have been a big meadow. You would have had your streets. It would have been probably a 10-minute horse and buggy ride to get to downtown. It's not that. I mean, it's 3 or 4 minutes by car, so I would imagine 10, 15 minutes by horse.
Yeah.
You're pretty convenient location, right? You're not outside of traffic too much.
I guess that would be the suburbs for them.
It would be, yeah.
All right, smaller radius there. So absolute fun time there. Marquis was there as well. And we had a lot of our daughters for that special event playing Yankee Doodle on their traditional musical instruments. I couldn't even recognize some of them. They were the older kind.
What are they called? It's a type of guitar. It starts with a D.
Dulcimer?
Yeah, they were playing dulcimers. And there was one gentleman with an acoustic guitar, so they were playing like early Americana songs. It was very cool.
And they were dressed up in period attire.
Yep.
We had people down in the cellar actually demonstrating the spinning of thread like they would have back then. And
the weaving room.
Yep. And then also, the kitchen was downstairs because it was just hot. Augusta is one of the hottest places ever in the summertime. Oh my God, you're gonna melt.
Not only that, but I mean, we're in Georgia. It's humid.
Yeah, but especially in Augusta. It's hot.
It's hot.
Yeah. So that's Meadow Garden, and James loved it.
Yeah, and it's really cool because our kids are involved in CAR, which is the children's version of DAR and SAR, and for this incoming year, he is going to be he has been asked to serve as a state chair for Meadow Garden. So his role this year is going to be to go around, and at every time we're at a conference or something like that, he will present on this location and talk about its history and help promote people to go and visit and learn more about this, because George Walton, last signer to the Declaration of Independence. And do you know why?
Well, because it was the furthest away from...
Because he was late.
Because we were the furthest away. We were the furthest colony.
Yeah.
We had the longest to travel.
So he shows up late. He's the last person to sign, and he gets one of the best spaces on the Declaration of Independence because they just tried to find a space for him to sign it. So he gets a very prominent signature. He's 26 years old.
Can you imagine
He's just
that?
recently elected. He's late, and then he gets this great space. So, I mean, just
serendipity.
Kudos. Yeah, and I do know that he did have a son. His son did live because his son is the namesake for Fort Walton Beach. So I did learn that while we were there. Learned a lot of history. So yeah, if you go and go down to Fort Walton, you ever been down there? Thank George Walton over here.
Yeah.
Because without him, it would be named something else.
So the other signers were Butt and Gwinnett, and what was the other one? Forsyth? No.
Forsyth, yeah, I think. But so we covered a lot while we were there. I mean, the history. It's like packing 20 pounds into a 10-pound sack. It really is concentrated in history, and there's few places in Georgia where if you're a history buff, you're going to go and you're going to learn something you didn't know. I mean, because our history doesn't go back that far in most of the state.
Not like other countries.
No. So if you're really a history buff, we'll cover Savannah later, but Augusta, definitely a great spot to check out. You can get a lot done in a weekend, and while you're there, I gotta say, I was able to stop by and have some food from one of my favorite restaurants. I haven't eaten there in over a decade because the first time I've ever been to Augusta, it was just a stop off, and it was just for this restaurant on a trip with some friends coming home from camping. Reinhardt's. If you're in Augusta, it's right off the intersection of 20. Reinhardt's is the place to go. From their seafood, they've got great seafood. Oysters on the half shell. It's all fresh. It's all amazing. They get busy. And they've got outdoor seating. It kind of reminds me of Cali and Tito's in Athens, right? Because you've got the outdoor seating. Theirs is gravel. It's not sand. But just a cool vibe when you go in. There was a big, lots of locals were having parties there. Because we're there on an off weekend, right? There's no big events happening in the city.
Are you kidding me? There's prom season.
For locals. There's not...
local high school.
The the Masters isn't going on now, so it's not like everybody's packed with tourists. This is just packed with locals, and it's packed because it's great.
Yeah.
So I got to send a picture over to Brandon, who went to school. He's a dentist. He went to school in Augusta, and I'm like, yo, it took a whole selfie with the kids. I'm like, guess where we are? And he goes, oh man, you're raising them right. So Reinhardt's definitely got lots of shrimp, lots of crawfish tails, and all sorts of. Oh, it's so good. So we are compiling a guide like we have in previous day trip destination episodes. So that will be out shortly, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. So check out everything that Augusta has to offer. And, if you need a realtor, somebody who is in touch with the market, we would love to help. You could check us out on simplylistAtlanta.com or selectrealty.com. There are 2 L's in Select, SELLECT, realty.com.
I know we've been talking about Augusta a lot. If you need an agent there, we do know agents as well.
Yeah.
So let us know. We can put you in touch.
I've got some great friends in the industry that live in Augusta, and I've got great friends in LJ that are in the industry, and Blue Ridge, and so you name it. If you're thinking about buying and you want to have some help finding a trusted agent, give us a call, 770-509-0265. If you haven't already, if you just discovered us, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, whether you're following us on your favorite podcast platform or you're watching us on YouTube. Hit subscribe, ring the bell if you're YouTube, and share this because it helps us reach more people. And that's all we really want to do. We want to tell people about our great state, share a little bit about us, and hopefully give you some good information to stay up to date on what's happening in real estate and the market here in our state.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you back here next week.
Bye, y'all.